Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and welcome to another walk through the cards. Today we'll be taking a stroll through the beautifully illustrated Earthbound Oracle. I will share with you my thoughts about the images and my impressions of this deck as we wander through the cards. The Earthbound Oracle is a practical and earthy 48-card oracle deck containing simple, familiar images with layers of deep symbology and meaning. This deck was created by the artist who brought us the wooden tarot, and although it makes a wonderful companion for that deck, it certainly stands on its own as a wonderful divination tool. So let's go ahead and jump into these beautiful cards. So here we have the beautiful card of abundance with the pomegranate, and we have the seeds. We definitely get that sort of empressy energy out of this card of abundance. Next, we have the achievement card. We have this gorgeous mountain with these crystals at the peak. It's a beautiful representation for achievement, but you can also find little details within these images. There looks in here like there is a little cave, and that might be something that we can draw into our readings as well. That idea of going deep inside in order to advance up the mountain to that point of achievement. So here we have our gorgeous elemental card for air. We have the triangle that we see, and we also have this little feather at the top. These elemental cards would be really great for pulling into your tarot readings as well, as you can use those to represent the different elemental energies, and they are quite beautiful in this deck. Here we have the Arcana card, and we have this gorgeous shell with the spiral in the center coming out to the crystals. Definitely taps into that idea of the inner mysteries or the hidden mysteries, the secret knowledge, that sort of vibe, and I think that that's a beautiful card to have. It's one you don't often see in decks. Here we have the gorgeous balance card, and we have this lovely stag here with the feathers. We have the acorn, and we have more feathers at the top, and there's also a spider web in between. So we have everything coming together to work in balance, and I think that's a beautiful representation for that concept. So here we have this, I know there is a name for this shape, and I apologize that I don't actually know it. It looks kind of like an atom, where we have the acorn in the center, and we have all of the leaves coming around to create the bond with the acorn in the center. And again, very earthy but beautiful representation of what we think of as bonding. Here we have the gorgeous ceremony card. Definitely pulls in that high priestess energy with the black and white candles. We have the gorgeous crystals on the bottom and the sun rising in the background. I do like that the flames on either side are the opposites. So we also get that idea of unity that we could pull into this card in duality. And it's a gorgeous card for ceremony, but I think you could read quite a bit in terms of duality and unity in this card as well. So here we have the gorgeous creativity card, and I love that we have this chameleon here, and he's all of his colors are blending into his surroundings. Maybe that's an iguana. I don't really know exactly what type of reptile that is. But he's gorgeous, and he's sitting there on the tree, and he does look, his coloring has that very splash of that creative vibe. So I think it's a gorgeous card for creativity, one you don't often see. And there's a lot of that in this deck. There's some really interesting representations of very common themes, but we see them depicted and represented in a really unique way. So here we have the gorgeous cycle card with the Ouroboros here. Similar to the wooden tarot, a lot of the animals are surreal, and they have, multiple eyes and that sort of thing. He also has these little wings. We have the lemon scott over his head and the phases of the moon. Just a gorgeous representation of cycles. So here we have our gorgeous death card. I love the purple smoke coming out of the eye. We see the hint of the moon in the background and the lemon scott in the place of the third eye. And again, just gorgeous artwork in this deck. Here we have the card of deceit, and this is an interesting one because we have this two-headed snake, and it's all bound up together. So we don't really know where it ends. We don't know what's inside it, and I think it's a really interesting depiction for deceit. I do like that there are cards in here. It's not an affirmation deck. We do have some shadow cards in here, or some cards that address those maybe darker aspects of self, and I think that that's really beautiful and creates a really balanced oracle deck. So here we have another elemental card. We have the gorgeous earth with the mountains, the downward facing triangle with the line, and a wonderful bone. These cards actually tie really well into the wooden tarot. So we'll take a look at that at the end. So here we have failure, and we have this moth here with his wings on fire, and he's not flying anywhere. He's failed at flying. He's got what looks like an eye on his back there. And it's a gorgeous, very, very earthy, but very gorgeous representation of failure. And here we have the card of fear, and we have this hare who's being chased by all of these arrows. You know, I think it just really embodies that idea of fear and of running from our fears. And here we have our fire elemental cards. We see the upward facing triangle with the fire inside and the crystal on top. Again, these symbols tie into the wooden tarot, which is really very interesting. And here we have gift, and I think this is a gorgeous representation for gift, as we have the apple, but we can see inside and we have all the seeds, the gift that comes from the inside. The seeds could be planted and brought into new trees that will bear more fruit. So I think that's really beautiful. Again, very nature-based, and I think that's really lovely. Here we have growth, and I think this is one of my favorite cards in the deck. I just love this jar here with these mushrooms, these toadstools blooming inside. It's such a beautiful card. I mean, we can read this in a lot of different ways, but we definitely get that sense of growth. But we could also see growth within containment, and that's not always necessarily a good thing. So this is one of the cards that I think, depending on the context of your reading, could be read either in light as more positive growth, or also in shadow as kind of a contained growth. So here we have guide, and we have this beautiful compass here, the little crystal at the bottom. It's just, you know, a gorgeous card. It's showing you the way. It's guiding your journey. Here we have the gorgeous healing card, and to me this kind of looks like the bird that is on the 10 of plumes, 10 of swords in the wooden tarot. And it looks like the similar bird, like he's healing after being stabbed 10 times. Here are the wands flying off around him. They are moving on. You know, he is injured, but he's healing. He's gonna move on from this. And here we have a gorgeous depiction of home, and I love that there is this intermingling of home. So we have the turtle who has the home on his back, and his home is always with him. But we also have the birds whose home is attached to the turtle, so therefore always on the move. So this bird, wherever they go, their home is constantly moving, but they're constantly moving with it, whereas we have the turtle whose home is always with him. So we have that kind of dual nature of it, of home always being wherever you are, and of home always being this internal thing. You are always home if you are at home with yourself, as in the case of the turtle, and then home as being, you know, whatever you make of it. So here we have the gorgeous Illuminate card, and I believe there's another card in this deck that has the eye closed. And that's really, really interesting. But we have this gorgeous eye, and then we have the candles that are bright and alight, and we definitely get that sense of knowing, of inner enlightenment, of being illuminated. And here we have the gorgeous Intuition card, and we have, I forget the name of these, but they're like you used with the spirit boards. And it's just a gorgeous representation of intuition. It's not something that I think we usually see. It's not a symbol that we usually see in accordance with intuition. So I really, really appreciate the uniqueness of the symbols in this deck. So here we have labor with the bees making their honey. It's just a gorgeous depiction of labor. We all know how hard bees work to make their beautiful honey. And I love all of the honeycomb symbols here, and the geometric unity in this card as well is really, really beautiful. So here we have the gorgeous life card we have the seed with the shoot coming out of it and the sun in the background. I mean, it's a beautiful depiction of life. That is definitely new growth and blooming, things coming into fruition. So here we have the one card in the deck that I really don't care for, and I will probably, to be perfectly honest, remove it. And I know I'm not the first person to say that. This is the card of luck, and it is a rabbit's foot, and it has these crystals. But to me, it's a little bit macabre, and I don't really resonate with that that symbolism. I've never cared for the idea of a lucky rabbit's foot. I don't like the idea of carrying around a dead animal's foot. These crystals to me look a little bit like, you know, the tendons and the inside of the rabbit and the blood, and it just too many not fun symbols for me. It's probably one that will be pulled out, but it's I mean, like all the cards, it's a gorgeous illustration. So here we have Luna, and a very simple card, but very beautiful. You know, definitely have that moon energy that makes me think of, you know, the moon goddess. I believe there's also a sun card in here as well. So here we have message, and I love this scroll with the wax seal on it. It's just a gorgeous representation for message. You know, we can't actually see the message that's inside. That's left open to our own interpretation, and I think that's really beautiful. You could use other cards in your spread to help pull in that message. So I really like that. And here's the eye closed with all of the candles blown out, and it makes a really interesting, if I can find real quick, the one that was open. So here we have the card that with the eye open, and that's just a really interesting duality in these two cards. I think that's really a nice pairing. There are a couple pairs in this deck, and I think they work really well together. So here we have permanence, and I love this ink file with the quill in it. It's just gorgeous. It really gives us that idea that, you know, what we put down, what we put out there can have permanence. And I love the ink spots in the background. Just gorgeous image. Like a lot of these images, there's a lot more going on within these cards than just what you see on the picture and what you get from the word. All of that you can take in, you know, dig deeper and bring out some really interesting messages with these cards. So here we have perseverance with the, you know, of course, the salmon who's always swimming upstream, doing what they need to do. It's a really gorgeous depiction. We have the sun in the background. We have the water splashing up. It's just beautiful. So here we have protect, and this is an interesting card because it's not quite as earthy or naturally made as a lot of the other cards. We don't find locks in nature, but it is covered with these mossy stones. We have the vines coming up, and we have the quill, the feather in the lock. And so we see this idea of protect, but however, the lock is open. So I think that really opens things up to a lot of different interpretations. So really interesting card. So next we have the card of reflect, which is just gorgeous with these leaves changing. We definitely see that growth, that reflect on how things have changed, how things have grown. Just a gorgeous card. So here we have release, and we have this beautiful flower with the water dripping out of it. You know, it's bursting, it's overflowing, and the water's now dripping out of it. It's releasing all of the excess, and I think it's just gorgeous. And here we have resistance, and I really like this card. I love the imagery of it. We have this rock that is like amidst all of this water and this movement and this constant rushing, being battered, but it's holding steady, and it even has growth on it. You see little leaves, little plants growing on it. So I love that idea of growth despite the resistance, or perhaps because of the resistance. And here we have the card of self, which is a really interesting card. We have an anatomical heart here with the eye wide open in the center. And then we have up here what almost looks like a tree growing into a tree. So it's a gorgeous representation for self. And although I tend not to really like the anatomical look, I really like this card and it works. And I like the fact that it's green and earthy, and we have this sort of tree-like images. It's kind of the natural essence of self, right? Not self as we see it in our materialistic world, but self as we are as creatures of this planet. And here we have simplicity, which is just a gorgeous, crescent moon. This is also on the front of the box, and just a beautiful card. And here we have sleep with the bear in the cocoon here, which also almost looks like a seed. We have all this growth going around outside of him, but he's all contained within, and he's sleeping, and he's gone inside to do what he needs to do. I think that's gorgeous, getting the rest he needs. So here we have the soul card, so that's the sun to our moon. Again, very simple, but very beautiful, very powerful card. Here we have Terra, and I think this is a gorgeous card. We have the mountains, we have the river running down, all the way down here into this splash of water, you know, this ocean-like imagery here. We have the rising sun in the background, perhaps the setting sun. Just a beautiful card to represent all of Earth and nature. Here we have the gorgeous card of time. We have all the astrological symbols around time. We have the hourglass, the moon, the sun, a dark moon, and then we have this lovely mountain. And just, again, so much you can dig into with these simple cards. So much symbolic meaning found within just this fairly simple image. Here we have toxic, and I think this is a gorgeous representation for toxic, was we have plants that I'm assuming are probably toxic. You know, that's nature. We have beautiful things in nature that are harmful to us. And we have beautiful things in our life that can be harmful to us as well. So I think that that's an important card to have in an oracle deck, because there is much about life that can be toxic. Here we have the gorgeous card of transformation, where we have the beautiful caterpillar and the moth or butterfly. Here we have eyes on the wings, again, tying in a little bit of that surreal animal energy that we had seen in the wooden tarot. And we have the crossed branches here and the cocoon. It's just a gorgeous card. Very, ties very, very much into the magician card, I think, in the wooden tarot. So here we have the card of travel, which is an interesting one. We have the two arrows here. We have the butterfly and the sun, and what looks to be some sort of directional symbol here. I don't often see travel cards in an oracle deck, so this is an interesting one. Here we have the gorgeous vision card. We have the owl, but he's actually blindfolded. So his vision comes not outwardly, but inwardly. It's inward vision. It's trusting that your inner voice, your intuition. He's got the beautiful crystal in his claws, and it's just a gorgeous card. Here we have the beautiful voice card with the wolf who's crying out to the cosmos. It's just, oh, that's a gorgeous card. You know, tapping into your innate voice, to your inner self, to your wild self. I think that's a gorgeous card. Here we have our final elemental card of water, and we have the beautiful triangle with the water inside and the blossom, which we will see also in the wooden tarot. Here we have the card of wealth, and we have all of these crystals here with the crystal beads, and we just have this cluster, which definitely gives us a sense of opulence and wealth. This does tie in a little bit to the 10 of Pentacles, or the 10 of, what are Pentacles? Stones in the wooden tarot. It has a similar energy to it. And finally, we have the beautiful card of wisdom with the book and the crow or raven sitting on top of it. The book is unlocked. Wisdom is available to us. We just have to reach out and take it. And I think that's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at the cards, I did just want to take a look at, I have pulled out some of the cards from the wooden tarot, and I wanted to just kind of take a quick peek and do some comparison to those. So I pulled out a couple of the cards that I've mentioned. So we have, I don't think I mentioned the world, but these two did catch my eye, so I wanted to address those real quick. Okay, so I've pulled out a couple of cards from the wooden tarot here that I just wanted to show how they kind of are related to each other. So here we have the world card from the wooden tarot, and we have the beautiful tarot card, and we definitely get a similar energy to these cards. Again, we have the 9 of bones and this gorgeous growth card, both with these toadstools, you know, growing in something contained. And I think that's really beautiful. Here we have the 10 of stones and the wealth card. And I think that these, when you start pulling these together like this, you can see how the Earthbound Oracle really draws those messages in, and they really do relate. So we have the World with Tarot, we have the Nine of Bones with growth, we have the Ten of Stones with wealth, and then we have the Ten of Plumes here with the bird, and then here we have the card of healing. So we've gone from the 10 and we've moved into that healing. We're moving on to the next level. So I thought that was just really interesting how these two decks kind of have a conversation together. I'm going to pull out a couple others just so that we can take a look. So a couple other comparisons that I made was, so here we have the Empress with our pomegranate, and we have the High Priestess with our card of ceremony with those black and white pillars. I mean, these cards just, they do really speak really well to each other, and they do work beautifully together to bring out those deeper messages. You could, even in a reading, just find, once you've done your reading with the wooden tarot, you could just find, rather than drawing out randomly, you could seek out cards from the Earthbound Oracle that have a similar energy or that feel related, and pull those down to add a deeper message to your tarot reading. And I think that's really beautiful and something that I definitely intend to do. So here we have our aces, or our gods, from the wooden tarot, and I've pulled out the elemental cards from the Earthbound Oracle, and you can see the symbolism is the same. We have the lotus here, and the lotus for water. We have for plumes the feather, and we have the feather here for air, the crystal for stones, and the crystal here, and then we have the bones here, and then of course the bone here. This is gorgeous. I really love the way they play together. I almost wish that these were the aces in the wooden tarot. I did talk about that in that walkthrough, that I'm not fond of the aces as these gods with the giant eyeballs. But these are beautiful aces, and it's almost a shame that these are not the same size, because then I could just swap these out as my aces rather than using these. But anyway, they are beautiful, and they do, you can definitely see that correlation between these two decks and how they do have a conversation with each other, and they really were, I think, probably developed to work as a companion to each other. Both work beautiful as standalone decks as well, but they do speak really well to each other. So now that we've done a little bit of playing with those, let's go ahead and give these ones a shuffle just to see how they do. They shuffle really well. The cardstock is really nice. It's kind of like, it kind of feels a little bit like the Make Playing cardstock, but it's really nice. I actually quite like it. It shuffles beautifully, bridges beautifully. It's a gorgeous little deck. This is obviously a smaller size deck, which which we just saw. We have, quite a difference between the two. It's a smaller oracle. I don't know if it's quite bridge sized or poker sized, but it's a perfect size, actually. I really like it. I like smaller decks. So let's go ahead and just pull a few and lay them down to see how they look together. And there's our healing card again, and our water, our sun. And those are really beautiful. I think you can get a lot out of these messages just as a standalone oracle. But where I'm really excited to use them is with the wooden tarot. So I'm going to go ahead just for fun and lay down a couple of those together as well. Before I do that, in case you want to, pop out of my extremely rambly long video, the Earthbound Oracle does come in a standard tuck box. It's not as nice of a tuck box, I don't think, as the other one, or maybe it's just because it's smaller. It does have the bend to it, but the cards do fit really nice in there, and it's a great little size. But again, you know me, bags, I'm probably gonna make a bag, but I did just want to point that out before I get to playing with these two decks together. So you can see here I've pulled a couple of cards from the Wooden Tarot and then a couple of cards from the Earthbound Oracle. And I really love how these really correlate and play into messages together. You know, we have the Emperor with travel, we have the Nine of Stones with the idea of home, and of course our Ten of Plumes, which is showing up again. So they do look really beautiful together. One more thing that I wanted to do just real quick is to pull another few cards and then to see if I can find some cards that the energy is really similar and matches, and see how that works. Okay, so I've gone through and I've laid 3 cards, and then I went through and mindfully selected 3 cards for to match the energy so that we can get that deeper message. Funny that the Empress came up again, and we have the pomegranate, of course. I thought about trying to find a different card, but for me, the pomegranate with the Empress just really does work well together. We also have the growth in the jar again, which I showed, which came up earlier for us. But for me, it just really works with this imagery of the 7 of Bones. And I love the idea of the 7 as new growth. You know, after the challenge of the 5 and the reharmonizing of the 6, we have the growth of the 7, which is definitely represented here. And then for the Knight of Plumes, I actually pulled the card of failure, because for whatever reason that just kind of seemed to click for me. And maybe this is perhaps a message of failure, a warning of failure, not to just, you know, charge in to whatever thoughts are are going on in your head, not to just charge forward without thinking, without taking the time, or you might, you know, risk that failure. So that was just really interesting and fun. That's definitely an exercise that I will probably do again sometime. And so I think that's probably enough playing for these and rambling for this time. So thank you so much for joining me through this walkthrough of the Earthbound Oracle with a little bit of the Wooden Tarot mixed in. I hope you enjoyed this stroll through the cards, and will join me again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.